Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Rachel, Laura, are you ready to continue?
Yep, just give me a sec. Oh no, that's not the one I wanted to share. I wanted to share this tab. So some good examples that I was just starting to pull some out that we might be able to kind of talk through. So I'm just going to steal a couple of others, and I might call on people if these are your stickies, just to tell us a little bit about it. So what we've got here is, let me just move these so you can see them a little bit better. So what we've got here, so we've got some blue ones. I don't know who had blue. So for the what, let me just make those smaller because again, they're gonna be a bit of a pain for you guys to see. If I zoom in, there we go. So we've got the what. So users would reach out for third-party help, for example, a solicitor to help read guidance on a website. So that's great. That's a finding. As someone external to this, I have no idea what that means or what the impact is. So the impact here is that this actually indicates that users don't trust the service or organisation that is listing that guidance because they're going externally for additional support. And we've got someone that's put the what next is we need to make sure. So the kind of the what next here is essentially looking at a way to improve the sense of trustworthiness. So make sure the guidance is written in plain English and people with access needs can read the info. I would say one way that you could take that up the next level is to, if you had any data or any insight into what the kind of link between what it was that was causing the distrust, and being able to kind of explain the kind of what's driving that would kind of like give it that extra sort of snap, that extra sort of impact. I think that's a really interesting, trust is a really interesting thing in terms of websites and people taking actions. And I think that is a really good assumption that if people are going elsewhere, they've got an issue with kind of the way that they're interacting with your service or your organisation. But being able to turn this insight into something that's even more impactful would be able to, if you have data in order to explain kind of that lack of trust. But we've got some nice next steps that might help contribute to making things feel a little bit more trustworthy. If people understand things, it seems very comprehensible, then that's going to kind of help them feel kind of like safe in dealing with that information. What else have we got here? So someone's put, so what, the user didn't remember their password, there was no forgot password option. So that's our observation, that's the finding. Again, what's the impact? Why should people care about that? Is it a problem? Could the user still continue with the journey, or did that absolutely slam the brakes on? So the impact of that is they had to email the SME and ask them to reset their password, which then as a result cost them time and probably money, and the user then was delayed in doing their actual work. So the what next would be to, pretty clear here, is to add an option for users to be able to reset the password themselves. So we give them that kind of that power to do that. Pretty kind of standard kind of expectation and model that people have. Green one, the what, users could not identify the grey button which listed when a change would take place. So the impact was that users didn't understand the timeframes for new policy changes. Again, there could be another sort of what's the kind of, I think sometimes the impact comes in sort of two parts. It's like, this is the impact and this is almost the impact of the impact. So the users would not be able to understand the new policy change timelines. So what's the impact of them not understanding? Is there a step that they need to take or something they need to act on the policy? And if they didn't understand the timeline, it would cause some of that to fall apart. So sometimes I think there's a two-layered thing for some of these more complex insights. And then for next steps, we want to make that grey button more obvious. So we want to make it more bold. We could try a different colour. We could try put it in a different place. So there's a few things kind of design-wise that could be looked at there. This one's quite detailed. So users struggled to find information about testing alarms. It was buried deep within several PDF links. Oh yes, been there a few times. So the impact of this is that users were frustrated. They were unable to quickly locate the information about testing quickly. Our users are busy. They need to make sure that the information is, that they've got the right information, it's up to date so that they can stay legal. People are worried that they are going to not comply with regulation and then be prosecuted. So there's a whole emotional component there, which is really quite impactful from a user perspective. And this one's nice because whoever did this one has decided to kind of open it up for others to collaborate as part of these recommendations. So we've got a how might we statement here. So how might we support users to be able to find the relevant and up-to-date testing information quickly so that they can make accurate and timely decisions? And that then gives you that kind of opportunity to either have the conversation there and then, if you've got time, or I know some teams like to go away and have a different sort of ideation session or an action sort of meeting where they kind of discuss the insights and kind of what the next steps are and then who owns those kind of actions off the back of it. And we'll just do a final one here, these yellow ones. So the what, users could not easily locate guidance information on the official website when they needed it, so that they would Googled it, but when they Googled it, they were always got shown old guidance, not very helpful. The impact of this is that it caused confusion from users. It increased the traffic to the help desk because people were phoning up for support, and it led to people being delayed in doing those tasks. And then we've got the recommendation is we need to ensure that users are confident in finding the most relevant guidance quickly and intuitively by providing them direct access through the service. Again, I think one sort of little touch here is how will we do this? Which is how do we then kind of give them that kind of direct access? How do we make sure that people are getting the right information and they trust that it's up to date? So again, we can start to be a little bit more prescriptive sometimes with those kind of next steps. Does anyone have any questions about that activity that you just did? Did anyone find that particularly helpful? Did anyone find that you were thinking about things in a different way, or did this feel kind of the way that you sort of naturally do things already? Everyone's very quiet. Right, who we've got? Alice.
Hi everyone, I'm very new to this space. I'm literally on my second week of a 6-month placement with the user-centered design team. So this is all brand new, but this has been so valuable as a proper foundation to understand about the actionable sort of side of things. And I have a tendency to I have a comms background, so I lean more towards what the stakeholder wants and just kind of taking that as right, we need to solve this, but this has been really valuable, so thank you.
No, it's lovely. Did you have a go at doing one of these?
I didn't, because ironically, even though one of my past titles was digital officer, I'm on the iPad, and every time I tried to select it, it just made the icons bigger and distracted everybody else. But
that doesn't sound very accessible. I'm very sorry for that.
No, it's okay. It's not your fault. I think it's a picnic situation, problem in chair, not in computer. But it's been great to observe. So thanks for everybody else that gave their thoughts.
Thanks, Alice. I had another dunk, but I think it was a message rather than a thingy. We don't have time to do this, but I'll show you the other one just so you can see what the other option is I know I've just noticed that someone who put in the chat, Jenny, thinking about twisting it and doing the consequences if you don't do something. So again, you can kind of take the opposite way of doing this. So this first one is the highlighting the impact of the problem, and then doing the recommendations and the next steps. The other way you can do it is to frame it as the risk of inaction. So if you didn't do anything about this problem, so these issues here, if we didn't build a password recovery option, if we didn't change, if we left the grey box there, if we left those links buried deep within PDFs, what is the kind of the long-term sort of impact if those issues persist? What impact will it have on users? What will they fail to do things? Will they continue, will they build a negative view of our organization? Are they going to be frustrated? And then long-term, kind of how is that going to affect sort of business outcomes? So again, if you feel that maybe the recommendations thing isn't the language that your stakeholders kind of respond to, but you think maybe risks are sort of their cup of tea and that is what kind of gets them thinking and moving, then you can kind of try and frame it in the kind of the opposite sort of way. So I'm just going to go back to where we were. So we'll finish on that one. So I'm pretty sure that is our, well, yeah, that's the end of the presentation. I think there's only one question in here in the Q&A that someone pre-put in, which is about incorporating storytelling into playbacks. What I'll do is I'm going to go back to the beginning so I can leave the summary up so you can see what we've been kind of looking at. So storytelling is, yeah, one of those kind of tools for sort of engagement, and we don't mean actually kind of tell a story, but essentially we sort of are in the way that it's structured. I think the way, if you do the what, the so what and the what next, that is naturally the structure of like a typical story. You have the scene setting and the problem that the protagonist or the hero or whoever or the character needs to overcome. You have the main bulk of that, the action, the what's going on, the things that happen to people, kind of the impact. And then you've kind of got the reconciliation at the end, things get tied up, solutions happen, the problem is overcome, prince gets the princess, all that kind of stuff. So you're essentially trying to take your kind of stakeholders on that sort of journey by doing the scene setting, talking about the conflict, talking about the impacts of things and the risks, and then kind of offering them that nice end to their sort of fairy tale in terms of, but this is how we can make it a happy ever after at the end. So that's kind of what I always think in terms of storytelling. I don't know whether anyone else is got any kind of feelings or strong kind of thoughts or experiences in doing that. I know some people have been working in user research a lot longer than I have, so might have some other kind of suggestions or ideas. I don't know if it was very quiet.
I'll jump in, Rach. Something that we did when I was working on the apprenticeship service was we had different mindsets for the different types of apprentices that we could have. So, for example, these could be a kind of brand new career starter, it's their first job, or they're using an apprenticeship to actually change their career. Because we had, I guess, presented and kind of circulated those mindsets that were aware, the service and the stakeholders were aware of those. So when we found out different scenarios and different kind of findings, we almost played that with the mindsets, like taking the mindsets kind of through that scenario as well. So if it was kind of tricky language, how would this new starter cope with that? How would that kind of big career changes cope with that as well? So it's a slightly different angle, but still kind of working through that kind of story that you mentioned and kind of getting to the end point and what do we need to do to make sure that that journey is as simple as possible for them.
Cool, thanks. Any other questions or anyone want to chat before you move into the next bit? just getting some links for people. Oh, my thing doesn't work now. Sorry, it's a bit behind the times. There it is. We'll be able to. I don't know why I've put links on a slide that people can't actually click on. I think we'll send them around anyway, or at least send some of the slides around. We've got a blog for Hippo. We've got our LinkedIn page and the website. So obviously there's like kind of like things on there. If you haven't joined the Brum UX, even if you're not maybe like in Brum, maybe you're like wider Midlands, or maybe you're just a bit nosy and you just like lots of extra, you know, learning and mingling opportunities, join the UX in Brum LinkedIn group, and support Priyesh in his bid for world domination of UX in the Midlands. And yeah, I'll hand back to you, Priyesh.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for doing such a brilliant presentation, and this collaboration was just awesome, and thanks for picking UX in Brum up at the end there. But I was just going to say, with these links, like you said, they're static on the screen, so I think if we share it in the chat for now, but just bear in mind once the call closes, those links will disappear. So the other way we can do this is circle those details. I don't know, are you planning to share the presentation as well, Rachel or Laura?
We'll create like a handout version of it.
Awesome. Otherwise, I was going to suggest that we can put the useful links into the UX in Brum group on LinkedIn, and then also on Slack as well, so that it can be pinned there to say this is what we had from this session. Does that sound good?
Good.
Cool. Okay, I'm gonna if you want to stop sharing, I'm gonna take over and go on to what's next. So let me just share my screen. All right, let's see. Why is it not changing the screen? Hold on a second. Okay, hopefully that's updated on your end now. Cool, thank you, Naomi, for joining the group. So again, I just want to quickly thank Rachel and Laura for doing such a brilliant session. Feel free to hang back. So what we're going to be doing now is I'm just going to run through the fact that we've just gone through this session, and Laura and Rachel kindly volunteered along with Hippo Digital to do this talk as guest speakers. So first and foremost, if you are wanting to collaborate or wanting to speak at some point in the future, please do reach out. We do have a couple of sessions lined up for the next 1 or 2 months, but beyond that, we're looking to have a strong cadence for talks like this. And at the moment, we've got once a month, but we're looking to potentially increase that as well. And given that cadence too, a sort of request in terms of getting involved. So there are a couple of opportunities for this community to get involved a little bit more deeper. So a couple of roles that I've outlined on this slide here. So looking for an event coordinator, somebody that can lead on the social media, and also a content curator as well. But I can share these details again after the call, but just putting that out there that if you do want to be more involved in the community, please do reach out. So we're going to go on to the virtual networking. So I was trying to come up with something that might be useful for people, given that I believe that having a mentor as part of your career is shown. There's high evidence, lots of evidence to say that if you do have a mentor in your life during your career path, that you are beneficial. It's a beneficial thing to do because they can help guide you along your way. So the question is, are you currently a mentor, or are you currently a mentee? or are you both? Now, with that question in mind, if you're any of a combination of those things, then what we're planning to do is just try and build out UX in Brum's mentoring network. Everything starts from somewhere, right? So this is just a little bit of a seed right now. But if you are interested in talking about this, what we're going to do is a round robin and take it further. So if you are interested in participating, please do hang back. And so we're going to start off. Let me just check. I'm just going to check the messages real quick because I cannot multitask, but okay, Becky. Cool, no worries. Everyone else, let me just see who's on the call. So there's 12 of us hanging back. That's cool, that's cool. All right, so what we're going to do is go around the table. So there's I think 10 of us in the call. I'm going to go on the order of the list that I can see from the Google Meet, and I think it's in alphabetical order. No, it's not alphabetical, but I'll start with who I can see first. But there's a question on your screen right now, just to start as a sort of icebreaker, and I'll give you a minute or two to think about this as well, given that the whole topic is around mentor and mentorship. But who is someone who has inspired or helped you in your career journey so far? So I'll set my own little timer here, but I'll give you 2 minutes to think about that. And just for clarity as well, it's Demetra that's going to be up first. So just throwing you in the firing line for now, but yeah, you're going to be up first. No worries. Oh, I love the eagerness. Thank you, Dimitri. Do you want to unmute yourself and go ahead?
Yeah, well, hi everybody. It was a lovely talk. Thank you guys for delivering that. So in regards to the question, so my current mentor is the person who has, say, helped me the most and inspired me to become a better researcher, by, just challenge me every time in every session that we have. And yeah, just giving me like incredible insights that I'd never had considered before. So it's kind of like you don't know what you don't know sometimes. That's been the most illuminating for me. And yes, that's pretty much it for me. If anybody else wants to contribute, happy to.
Yeah, I'll so that everyone gets to speak, I'll say who's next. So it's Elizabeth. Have you got someone in mind?
I do, yes. So my mentor, and this is actually quite a long time ago now, was Debbie Levitt, and she's written a few books on UX and CX as well. So she dragged me kicking and screaming really into the UX world, because I was a traditional sort of e-commerce designer, looking at the psychology of conversions, but I didn't really know much about UX at the time. And she was quite abrupt and threw me straight into agency life in the States. So it was a little bit of a rude awakening, but I haven't stopped since. And she still inspires me with the books that she writes, even her karaoke sessions that she does on LinkedIn.
Awesome. I'm just gonna ask you both that have already answered so far. Are these your current mentors or the most significant ones as well? Have you stayed in touch in that sense?
For me, yes, I've stayed in touch with Debbie, but I don't necessarily have a mentor anymore. I have been a mentor because I've been in this industry for, well, I stopped counting after 10 years. I don't like saying I've been in the industry for longer than 10 years because people then start like guessing my age.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But thank you for sharing. Thank you. So next on the list is Jenny.
Hi everyone, it's good to meet you all. So someone who's helped me my journey so far is kind of surprising actually. So I am recently in the process of breaking into UX researcher roles. So I did a degree in UX design and now I'm trying to go into UX research. And I recently had an interview for a UX researcher role, but unfortunately I wasn't successful. So I reached out to the hiring manager at the company and asked if he could share some specific feedback. And he said yes, and kindly we ended up having an hour call long on a Friday afternoon, which was super kind of him. But something that he shared with me was that he would have rather that I did my presentation on a real world project rather than one of the projects that I did at university. And this surprised me because my real world project was a volunteer project, which I didn't use many research methods. And I went for my uni project instead because that was very robust with a lot of quantitative and qualitative measures. But he said to me that he would have rather heard of how I dealt with constraints, dealt with conflict, dealt with no budget and things like that. And that's something I've taken forward in my experience in preparing for other interviews and opportunities.
So from the sounds of it, would you say that this is your first mentor since university?
I wouldn't say that is my first mentor.
Okay.
I've had mentors throughout university, and at the moment I sort of also reach out to quite a lot of people on LinkedIn. I'd say that I've got several mentors at the moment. They help me with different things.
Awesome, that's great. Okay, thank you, Jenny. Laura, you're up next. Thanks for sticking around.
Hello. I've got a few, especially kind of throughout my career, but I'd say probably the one who, I guess, pushed me into user research, made me actually understand the value of user research, was kind of David Travis, from like doing the course, from all of his books, all of his kind of, I guess, short tutorials, all of his YouTube shorts. They just really hit the nail on the head for me about kind of the importance of UCD and user research in general. So I'll go with him, but I do have very many.
Awesome, thank you for sharing, Laura. Naomi, you're next.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so it's good to be here on the phone with everyone. I think someone who has helped me a lot and was acted as a mentor figure for me is actually a former colleague I worked with, someone in a previous role, a different, different area, like in UX. They pivoted into UX, and they've really helped me in terms of how to get started in moving into UX as well, sort of how to put a portfolio together, what sort of things that people would be looking for in terms of like hiring managers, and that sort of thing. And we're still in touch now, and that's someone who's really helped me a lot. So again.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you, Naomi. We're going to move on to Rachel.
Oh, back again. I haven't had like an official mentor before, but when I was starting to get into user research, I did a lot of like I suppose, like stalking and following people on LinkedIn and Twitter before it became a terrible place to be. I really like following a researcher on LinkedIn and her other things. If anyone has come across Nikki Anderson, she's like an independent user researcher, and she's built this whole sort of like company around delivering user research. But she puts out a lot of great kind of resources and posts and articles, and I've been to some of like her workshops before, and she actually one of the activities in what we just did was kind of like based on one of her kind of posts that she put recently. She's just I don't know her personally, but I just find her quite pragmatic and quite kind of like honest about user research, and I just like following her kind of stuff. I like to think that I like mentor quite a few people, like at work. Becky, who was on the call earlier, she's one of my good friends. I've kind of been sort of mentoring her on user research and doing a lot of sense checking with kind of her work and things in the past. Yeah, so I just think research and I think UCD in general is generally like a really collaborative space to work in. Like, everyone wants to share information and help people and see people kind of succeed. And generally speaking, I don't think there's a lot of gatekeeping, which is nice. I think we should be able to kind of like share things and help each other get better. So I think that's a great thing about these kind of communities.
That's awesome, and it sounds like it's having a trickle effect, right? So I think Jenny just said in the chat as well that so Rachel mentors Becky and Becky mentors Jenny, so it's kind of like a domino effect.
Gotta show the love.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing, Rachel. So we're gonna move on to Sandra.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, hiya. I think similar to Laura, so maybe the person who actually inspired me to get into user research and learn more about it. So I kind of like stumbled myself into, I would say, like into the user research space. I was in my penultimate year in university and kind of trying to find an internship. And I did so, and I was randomly like allocated a role in user research, and the user group that we were kind of like researching and, you know, focusing on, they basically just to find out exactly what the impact user research had on their lives. So I was the one who put down the guidance, how users would go and reach out to third-party people and providers to try and like simplify that guidance, and making sure that, you know, we can actually have an impact and make the lives of that certain user group easier. Was just really interesting and great to have that mentor to talk me through that whole journey. But yeah, that's what I would say for my one.
All right, thanks for sharing, Sandra. And finally, Sophia. If you're talking, we can't hear you. I saw that you took yourself off mute. That's fine. Sophia, we can't hear you. Cool. Do you want to put your answer in the chat and we'll read that out shortly? Thanks a lot. So, I mean, what's interesting here is that there's a variety of approaches, a variety of mentors, a variety of reasons to reach out for help in that sense. And like Rachel mentioned about the collaborative nature of our industry, it's very much about that community feel, about being able to help others, right? So I think one of the key things here is that you know, this was an outward thing. I know Rachel mentioned that she mentors others, but when we're looking from as an individual outwards to seek a mentor, and then actually finding someone that can help you in that sense, that's a great feeling, right? Somebody is helping you on that journey. Now let's try and turn that the other way, and I guess Rachel's a good example here. But what if you were actually a mentor for somebody else? I want to have a show of hands in the call, if you can just raise your hands. But I want to check how many mentors we actually have on this call right now. Rachel will be one for sure. Let's see. Okay, let's see. All right, so okay, Jenny, that counts. It doesn't necessarily need to be in UX. So we have 4 people, so we've got 10 people on the call. Four of those are mentors. Maybe we can hone in on a little bit here in the sense of I'd like to hear from you 4 in the sense of being a mentor, and what is it that you, so were you ever in a position where you were originally seeking out mentors? I think some of you have already mentioned that you have sought mentors in the past, but I think what we want, or what I would like you to share is like what fulfillment do you get in that sense of being a mentor for others? Out of those 4 people, if anybody wants to volunteer.
I'm sorry, what was the question again? I was reading Sophia's response.
I was just saying, I mean, what as a mentor yourself, what is it that inspires you to actually be a mentor, and what is the fulfillment that you get from being a mentor?
I can go.
Okay.
I think it's because I was mentored, and I wouldn't have been able to break into UX unless I had somebody dragging me into it, opening doors, opening opportunities. And I've realised, definitely in my time working in the public sector, is that it is hard to get in because everybody wants very, very specific research methods, specific experience, and sometimes you need somebody to open a door. And that can sometimes be if you're in a position where you bid for projects, for instance, like I do. It's when you're bidding for like a large government project, you then open up a sort of space for a sort of maybe a research ops or a junior researcher, and that can either be fulfilled by somebody on a permanent basis or somebody even on a contractor basis, to allow them to get in on a project. Most of my mentees have gone through like courses and classes, but they don't have any practical real world knowledge, and that really lets them down. But it's also the proliferation of our species. We are a dying breed, and we do need people to come underneath us. And as we decide that we want to be heads of and leads, we can't be leads and heads of if we've got nobody to lead. So that's just my opinion.
I love that, especially that ending. That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. So 3 raised hands. Out of Rachel, Laura, and Jenny, who's ready to go?
I don't mind starting. So kind of, I guess the fulfillment for me is when you have someone who has no experience of user research, of UCD at all, and then when they do get to the point of where they're kind of comfortable, like planning research, like doing the sessions, kind of analysing that, with still the support, that actually them being able to kind of take that on their own, kind of doing things that you kind of taught them and kind of learned from them, and then kind of asking the right questions as well. So you're almost learning off them still, but just watching kind of someone grow who has that no experience to be able to kind of like act and kind of provide value is so beneficial and so fulfilling.
I love that. Yeah, I think that growth element is probably one of the key ones, because you can see how somebody who started from scratch potentially or early days, then progressed to something substantial over their career, it is fantastic, right? Rachel?
Like I said, I don't always see like mentoring as like I mean, it can obviously be like a formal kind of agreement between two people, like I'm going to be your mentor, you're going to be my mentee, and you have like regular things. But I think it's kind of sometimes a bit more like ad hoc and a bit more like you might not put that label on, but you are still doing kind of mentoring. But I think, I mean, I'm like a kind of, and I suppose many people are like, it's quite rare for people to have like user research as their first career. You tend to be like a career changer. And I used to work in community drug and alcohol services, and basically gave up a job I'd had for over a decade to try and teach myself user research and go self-employed. Sort of 5-6 years on, I'm a lead user researcher at Hippo, so I've obviously done something okay. But it helps. I really like it because one, I think there is a personal element of like, it reminds you when you work with someone that's new earlier on in their career, it reinforces you and yourself and your own sort of like knowledge and things. So you do kind of get, that positive sort of, okay, you feel accomplished in what you've done. But also I remember like asking for help from people way back when and being given really terrible advice, like, oh, you need to go and do a master's degree in like anthropology, or you need to go and do this. And that wasn't something that I was prepared to do or I thought was necessary. And I'm just really against like this terrible gatekeeping and bad advice. And it's really fun to show people, like, let me show you how I did this. What do you think about this? How have you approached it? There's that element of coaching, but it is about kind of like teaching someone by showing them and giving them kind of like options.
That's interesting stuff as well. I think that's just triggered something else in my mind where one would assume that all people in sort of mentor positions would be looking to give you the right advice and wanting to see you go on the right path. So I've never thought about it where somebody may have actually put you on the wrong path, as it were.
I think in a way it made me feel more stubborn because I didn't agree with, they weren't an official like mentor, but I reached out to people who were like in senior positions that I kind of, initially was like obviously quite respectful of and wanted their experience and their advice. And then when I got it and it just didn't sit quite right with me, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do it myself.
No,
I don't need that. So if anything, it just made me really angry and then kind of like spurs you on.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've got to find the right kind of person for you, I think.
Yeah, it needs to be, that feeling and that gut feel and intuition as well plays a part. But you're right, the relationship needs to be a two-way in that sense, and you gotta feel right and feel like you're getting, well, this is the thing as well, it shouldn't be transactional, right? It should be something that's it is beneficial for both parties, but ultimately you're giving something in terms of your own knowledge and experience to somebody, like we've said throughout this call, the opportunity to learn and grow themselves, right? So yeah.
And also I think it's useful if you're someone in like maybe a more like mid-level role where you don't have like management responsibilities for everyone, but you want to move towards more senior roles. Mentoring is a great like step, or like mentoring and like coaching is like a great step where maybe you're not formally kind of managing or supervising someone, but you want to kind of develop those kind of people skills and that those leadership skills and things. So that's a step in that kind of direction.
Awesome. So we are closing in on our last sort of 5 minutes. Jenny, if you want to give your contribution, and then I've got 2 more slides to go through. But I love what we've been speaking about on this topic so far.
Absolutely, I would really love to, and I'll try to be quick because I know we're coming to the end. But I just wanted to say that I kind of fell into my role as a mentor quite accidentally. and I wasn't aware that I was a mentor. So I got a contract role at my university as a human computer interaction researcher. And part of that is you demonstrate, or you're basically a teaching assistant in some of the modules in the user experience design course. It's an MSc. And I always felt like, oh, you know, I can't really be a mentor because I'm not the success story, as in I don't have my dream job in UX research yet. But actually, I find that that's even better, because I mentioned that I did this interview, and I've done other interviews, and I haven't been successful yet. But I've been able to, the students have asked me, oh, how's your job hunt process going? And I've been able to tell them how, I wasn't successful, but hey, this is what I learned. These were the interview questions I got asked. This was how I felt into this interview. This was how I prepared my CV. This was how I did all of these things. And this is what I learned. This is what that hiring manager told me. So, I can also tell them that, go work on real world projects, go look for volunteer projects, because that's something I wished I'd done earlier. And I think that is something that they really appreciate. And that makes me feel really fulfilled, because even in my position, I'm not in a senior role or anything. I'm still able to help others.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like imparting your own lessons learned regardless of where you stand in your career or the level of experience that you have, right?
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So in the last few minutes, thank you for participating. I love, and I want to continue this conversation as well in Slack, because I've written down a couple of questions too, and I think it's just really good to kind of keep this discussion going. But the idea is that, I don't actually know what everyone's appetite for this is anyway, because I know that lots of things exist like ADP list, etc., etc. But at least the conversation is worth starting anyway. But first and foremost, everyone that's on the call, and if you could share it further with your colleagues and your network too, is that if you could join the UX in Brum Slack. Again, I'll put up the QR code at the end of the call so you can get all the links really, really quickly. There's a channel within Slack called Mentoring, so get yourself added to that. And then effectively post, because I think a lot of people I've not even met before either on this call anyway, but whatever capacity you're in, introduce yourself, and also say whether you are actually a mentor or a mentee looking for a mentor as well, because I'm sure that we have the right people in the community to point to if help is needed. So before the Google kicks us off anyway, thank you all for joining, thank you all for participating. This is the link anyway if you need to screenshot. And again, massive thank you to Rachel and Laura for your talk earlier. It was very informative and inspiring, so thanks again, and I'll be in touch with you soon. But again, please look out on the LinkedIn group and Slack as well now for the next session, which should be coming up sometime in May, which is crazy that it's like a few days away. But anyway, there'll be a session in May, so look out for that. But thanks again. Enjoy your evening.
Thanks, Priyesh, and thanks everyone for coming. Lovely to meet you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.